All right, back with another tutorial. This time I'm going to tell you guys how I got that massive bass tone on Electric Red. So for this cover, I teamed up with the masterful Kyle Gurdon, who provided an entirely offensive drum performance to this track. So of course, I had to do my end, make sure the bass was going to live up to that. So here's my #1 secret that I'm about to give away right here, right now. I always double my bass parts with a bass synthesizer. In Logic, I recommend deep sub bass, but no matter what DAW you're using, you're gonna have a sub bass synthesizer. So if you know the exact notes and rhythms that you're gonna be playing in the bass part, might as well plug them into a synthesizer. That's the beauty of using these grid-locked DAW systems. You can always do that. So let's just take a quick listen to that sub bass. You can hear what it's bringing to the low end. Like, entirely nondescript. All it's really bringing is a consistent low end presence and a little bit of attack at the beginning of each note. So it's like taking the idea of bass compression and then just making it even more extreme by adding that consistent synthesizer tone, because it's a robot. It's a synthesizer robot. It's perfect. It has the same equal saturation on each transient, which, you know, an actual performed bass part doesn't have. There's a lot of inconsistencies in any type of instrumental performance. So doubling it with the synthesizer brings more of that consistency, but then of course you're leaving that human element by keeping that human performed instrument in there as well. So then when I get to the second section, I do something else a little interesting, is I fan that bass out. I fan it hard left and hard right, keeping that sub bass in the middle. Now that's giving me a great contrast from the first to the second section of the song, and I have guitar driving. These are both guitar tracks. I have guitar driving that introduction, but then when I get to the second section, I just got rid of the guitar. I was like, hey, you know what? It's actually because the guitar is playing a melody here instead. So then I just was like, okay, the bass is going to be driving that riff. How am I going to make that bass a little bit more interesting to listen to? Well, I recorded it twice and panned them on the opposite side of the spectrum. Have a little subtle nuance in the difference. There's a little bit of difference from one bass performance to the next, and those subtle differences just bring a lot more presence and just make it a little bit more interesting to listen to. And like I said, I have that consistency in the bass part from the sub. So let's listen to how that contrasts from section A to section B when the bass fans out. Right? So suddenly the bass just becomes like way more fun to listen to, and you're like, wow, I just love bass. It's literally just because I fanned it out, and it's taking up more presence in the mix, and it's making up for the lack of guitar. So that melody, it's a classic trick I always use, doing the same thing I do with bass. Instead of having a sub in the middle, I have, what do I got? I got this thing, whatever this synthesizer is. The exact same idea that I'm using with bass, but I'm just doing it with the guitar and the melody of the track. So let's just take a look at the plugins I'm using on the bass. So we'll look at this one first. So literally just using the first bass amp that comes up in the stock bass plugins for Logic. Nothing really fancy about that. Using a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay. Why not? So I use these short delays on my bass parts just to give more presence and make it a little more fun to listen to. The sound of dry bass to me, not really what I'm going for. So these short delay, I've got quarter note left delay, eighth note right delay. That's basically just widening the initial transient of the bass. That's all it's doing. So then when I pan it left and pan it right, I just split up the effects. So one bass is getting the reverb and the other is getting the delay. Oh, great. More contrast. It's just adding to that presence that makes it so fun to listen to. So I mean, that pretty much sums it up for you. Here, take a little bit more of a listen to this mix, and I'll see you guys on Monday.